Hi, I'm Caleb Anderson.
And I'm Jamie Drake. We're co-principals in Drake Anderson based in New York City.
At Drake Anderson, we're very focused on being unique in that we're constantly looking and searching and creating things that we haven't seen before, that are unexpected and are exciting for our clients and for us.
I love the way Caleb just said unique, because now we've almost coined this whole new phrase. There's a little hyphen in between YOU-NIQUE.
When designing a unique space, it's important to embrace what you love.
It's about the power of personality, the power of your personal style. I call it the triple P's, personality plus pow.
Me, I love books, so my apartment's filled with books. I actually have a library in my 2-bedroom New York apartment.
The room surrounded by books really does tell you about what he's interested in.
Oftentimes, clients come to us and they're too focused on trends rather than their own personal style.
Good place to start is to think about what gives you happy memories, whether it's family, it's mementos, heirlooms, collections of things that you've purchased over the years, artwork. I mean, I do think so much of what we find comfort in is triggered by memory.
As designers, we love incorporating pieces that have a story. It could be a story about an antique chair that belonged to your grandmother that has special meaning to you, or a gorgeous piece of art that you bought on your favorite vacation.
But it's really about the story. And for example, maybe one of your favorite memories is your grandmother's strawberry rhubarb pie. And that could be the beginning of a color story. Creating a unique interior really is about listening to the client. And for this project, was a client, they decided they wanted something much quieter, much more subtle. So we developed this luxurious scheme of a variety of different textures and materials, a lot of which have a lot of luster, which of course picks up in the light beautifully.
One of the strengths I feel that we have as designers is our ability to understand and assess a client's personality by clues they may bring us, talking about their favorite hotels and restaurants, or fashion designers bringing magazine clippings or showing us a Pinterest board. We're able to take those clues and create a design through our lens that reflects their personality.
Because at the end of the day, we don't keep the key to the front door. We give it over and we walk away. But it's our job to interpret the personalities and make the designs and the homes that we come up with unique for someone else.
As designers, lighting has become something that we're very intrigued by. The freedom that we have now through lamping and LED and controlling is just really sort of infinite, and how we sort of brought those different aspects to each one of the products has been a great learning experience for us, I think, in doing this, but also creates great versatility in our projects. Hi, I'm Andrew Kotchin.
I'm Matt Berman.
Welcome to Workshop APD. Matt and I are the founding principals of Workshop. We started this business about 21 years ago when we were, as Matt likes to say, 6 years old. And
Prodigies.
We've grown this practice very slowly, very steadily over the past 21 years into a multifaceted, multi-dimensional design practice that focuses on single-family residential work, development projects, hospitality, and ultimately product.
The secret sauce of Workshop is what we call the space in between. And so it's the space in between landscape and architecture, architecture and interiors, interiors and product. And oftentimes that relationship is really what informs the development of all of those components. That's where we say, we are looking on the market for something that we can't find, and so instead we're going to design something. We're going to design the solution for this need. As we started to grow into larger scale production, we saw an opportunity for product to really stand alone. And that's really when we sought out partnerships and found a partner like Arteriors and really began to develop a very unique signature line of products for them.
I'm Steve Davis, President and CEO of Arteriors. With this collection, we really wanted a more contemporary, modern aesthetic, and we felt Workshop's strong background in blending architecture and interiors would be a great asset.
I'm Andrew Klein. I'm a senior associate here at Workshop APD. We've always loved working with Arteriors and using their products in our projects, and so it's kind of a natural fit that we would design for them. Arteriors gave us a design brief that was really a guideline of what they needed in their collection, but really the vision was completely left open to us, which is a designer's dream.
When we were in the formative stages of exploring the partnership, it became very evident that Matt, Andrew, and the team had a deep appreciation for materiality and capturing the beauty of the handmade, which sparked an immediate connection with our internal design team.
The Arteriors collection was really born out of something that's very part of our DNA, which is this idea of craft. And we really started to look at different ideas of making. And that's really ultimately what defined the various collections that are within the Arteriors collection. There's roll, bend, glaze, and cut. Very simple verbs that imply action, imply making, and really started to shape what we were actually doing. Each of those micro collections, they were really based on that kind of artisanship and that kind of handmade quality. And at the end of the day, we wanted something that when you looked at it had a hand to it, something that was a kind of a tactile language.
Arteriors has an incredible line of product that is very diverse, and I think one of the reasons they came to us ultimately was to bring this sort of pared down modern feel to the collection that we created.
Collaboration with Arteriors really means a lot to Workshop APD because even though we've been seen as architects and interior designers for many years, we're new on the product design side of the business, but we're very passionate about work at all scales. And so this was just a great moment for us to really show ourselves as product designers. A lot of thought went into these projects so that they could be mixed and matched and put easily into any type of project, whether it's residential or commercial. What we loved about it is the idea that you can use multiples, hang them at different heights, repeat them over and over, and they all work really seamlessly together.
For us, that idea of a word that we just learned, which was the resi-mercial, something that really could cross all those categories, we felt was something that just needed to be part of our collection because it's part of who we are.
Hi, my name is Paulette Pearson, and I am the Texas Homes Editor for Luxe Interiors Design. Today, I'm talking with Denise McGaha of Denise McGaha Interiors in Dallas. She is such a talented designer, a powerhouse, and a true friend to Luxe. So we're honored that you took a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to kind of to be here with us. So how have you been? I know it's sort of the end of summer, but how are things going for you as our summer days kind of wind down?
This summer has really been very busy for us. I think our industry in general is extremely busy, and
Right.
home is a focus for so many. So it hasn't been as relaxing as some summers have.
We had a really great privilege, wonderful privilege of featuring one of your projects. It was actually a Fort Worth project that appeared in our March, April issue, which seems so long ago now, earlier this year. And we thought it would be a great one to sort of dive a little bit deeper into. Tell me a little bit about, how you kind of came to the project and sort of what your client wanted. And if I recall, she or they had always lived in more traditional homes, and this was sort of a jumping off point for them into a little bit more contemporary kind of design. So tell me a little bit about, how you came to the project and what the client asked of you.
Absolutely. So I was invited to meet the client by an amazing builder in Fort Worth, as you mentioned, David Lewis of David Lewis Builders. And he had a client that he thought would be a wonderful fit for our firm who was looking to work with a designer who understood construction as well as decoration. And the client had already begun work with Birnbaum Magadini architects. And they were, I would say they were probably 80 to 90% complete on the plans when we were brought in. And we were given a very strict timeline, and the client wanted everything completed in nine months.
Wow.
We had 9 to 10 months to construct, but the builder and his team construct the home, and our team to work on not only the fit and finish of the home itself, but also to furnish it. So that's how we were brought in.
Right. There lies the challenge trying to, and I think we'll probably get to this. There are so many custom details in this house that you would never know that you completed it in just the matter of 9 months. So, you know, one thing I also wanted to ask is, you know, how did it resonate with you personally? You know, are there any signatures, or is there any, you know, how did it resonate with you in terms of the design and kind of your portfolio?
You know, I really connected with this client who understands design, has built many homes in her lifetime. And she and I worked very closely together. I really understood what she was wanting. She was ready for a new, fresh look. She wanted to downsize their life. They wanted something that lived easier, that was lighter and fresher and cleaner. And I think the phase of life that she was in, I very much understand that as I'm approaching a new phase of my own life with my children leaving home. And she wanted something that really reflected where they were going now. And we talked a lot about not losing sight of family, friends, entertaining, easy flow between spaces, not too fussy, but also extremely luxurious and functional. And all of those things they resonated with me personally, and we really connected over them.
Right. And I think, you know, I think that's so evident in those beautiful outdoor spaces, which I'm going to ask you about. I think they have heated floors and all kinds of incredible things. There's such a great indoor outdoor connection. So take us through your process. You learn that you have 9 months, and, you know, where do you begin? How did you take the interiors kind of from, you know, dream to reality? What were your steps?
So I think working with the construction team was really important to understand how were they going to accomplish this in 9 months, and how could our team make sure that we were making every decision that needed to be made in a timely fashion so that they weren't ever waiting on us. That was the first part, was the communication between the construction team and my team. And then it was also working in conjunction to make sure that we were furnishing the home, because a lot of the items, even though they were custom, they did have longer lead times. So it was almost like we were working in tandem on both parts of the project. And so certain days of the week we were focused on the construction and we were in the field and making selections with the client. And then other days of the week we were also working on the furnishings and decoration. So it was definitely a project management process as well as a design process. And lots of communication.
I was going to say, I think that was probably one of the keys, was just to make sure everyone was on the same page. You didn't, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you didn't really have the luxury to kind of wait. You really had to kind of communicate in order to keep to your schedule.
And sometimes that seems daunting, but other times it really helps you narrow your focus and know what is available. And if it's not available, then it falls off immediately. Even if you love it, let's find an alternative. And so we took that approach on a lot of our decisions.
A lot of quick decisions, but careful ones.
Well, and our client was she knew what she liked. She gave immediate answers. The minute that we presented something, we had an immediate answer. There was lots of FaceTime with her, and we were with her several times a week. So we got the opportunity to present things quickly, get an answer, and move to the next decision.
Right. I remember too, this, you know, we mentioned everything being so personal. Tell me about the color palette. And I know purple was kind of something that was requested. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you brought it in and sort of, you know, sort of a really wonderfully sophisticated way. I know that there's sort of a seating area in the home that's near or overlooks the outdoor space. And then if I'm not mistaken, that the hue also kind of appears in that incredible powder bathroom, I believe. So
Yes.
tell me about the color palette. I know that that was something that was a specific request.
Well, the family are huge supporters of TCU in Fort Worth, Texas Christian University, Horned Frogs. Purple is their mascot color, their main color of the team. And it was really important that we utilize that color palette in a fresh and unique way. And everywhere from the outdoor spaces into the powder bath that you describe with that beautiful rice paper that we used in the space. And we really wanted to make it more like art. The client has such an appreciation for art and artisans. And we worked really hard to work with individuals who understood what our client was looking for and what we wanted to bring to the table. One-of-a-kind looks that really felt tailored to their tastes. They entertain often. We wanted the indoor and outdoor spaces to meld. And so that color palette really needed to flow throughout the home.
You mentioned, I do remember, that the clients had sort of a love for art and, structural, more sculptural pieces. And the thing that what pops into my mind is that beautiful dining table. Tell me a little bit about that dining space and the sort of that great living space in general. Everything's so connected, but that seems to be such a standout.
What's interesting about the layout and the floor plan that Birnbaum Magazzini created is that it is truly an open floor plan. It is all really one big room. When you walk through the door, there's a courtyard space that you come into before you go in through the front door area, but it is all, you see the kitchen from the front door. So we needed to create really a sense of place in each vignette, if you will, or each space, and they all needed to flow together. The dining table was probably where we started, and the minute we saw it on the floor, she was like, I want that table. That's it. And so it really became the cornerstone of what we were building the entire design around. Everything took a backseat to the table. But each piece that we brought in, the dining chairs that went with it, the lounge area over to the left of it, where she has coffee in the mornings with friends and family and wine in the evenings with her girlfriends, they're very near to one another. So they needed to play together really well. And I had to work with balancing all of the spaces together to where one didn't outshine the other.
I mean, that kind of that is a great segue into talking about the kitchen as well, because I remember you mentioning that, I mean, everything's so beautifully concealed, and the kitchen just, it as a space within a larger space, it adds so much, I guess, design and aesthetic beauty. And how were you able to create a kitchen that does that, that's open to everything? There's no separation at all. So tell us about the kitchen and what your strategy kind of was for that.
Our client, when we first started, she said, I don't want my kitchen to look like a kitchen. I really don't want people to feel like they're in the kitchen. It needs to be beautiful, but I also need it to be really functional. So working with Eggersman, we did all custom cabinetry. And to your point, the refrigerators that we have absolutely no hardware. You knock and they open. All of the counter space in between the refrigerator and freezer reveals all this beautiful hidden storage above with mirrored panels that you just push a button and they open as well. So lots of technology was created in the space to really conceal a lot of the function, and being able to marry those things and create drama was huge for them, and also making sure that we had beautiful lighting to accent the space and to reflect in those mirrors over the bar. It really is a beautiful functional space. And the island countertop is different from the perimeter, and it's super functional as well because it has a surface that is wire brushed. So you almost can't, you can't destroy it. It's really hard wearing.
Well, I'd be remiss if I know that we're kind of coming up on the last few minutes already, but I want to get to the powder bathroom and also to the exterior living spaces.
Sure.
So really quickly, tell us just a little bit about those exterior spaces. I remember, I remember just being so blown away by how welcoming they were and how some of those sort of details, and kind of tell me about the exterior living spaces and what you did out there.
You know, what was interesting about what our client wanted is they'd had a pool for many years, and they decided they didn't want a pool in this house. They wanted more of a courtyard feel. And so the architects designed a space that you walk up to a courtyard gate and through a courtyard before you enter the home.
Mm-hmm.
So it needed to be beautiful and spectacular. And it has a fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
On one side. All the floors are heated. There are heaters in the ceiling. So it truly is an all season space,
Right.
even though the courtyard walls are open to the outdoors. There are phantom screens that come down and enclose it.
Right.
And then another part of the courtyard has an amazing outdoor water feature that runs the length of the courtyard with beautiful iridescent tiles and the sound of water and palm trees. And so it really gave them the feeling of a pool without the maintenance.
Right. I just loved how inviting it was, and it's so visible from the interior spaces too. So it just added so much even to the inside. Well, and then lastly, this powder bath, which I remember and you tell us more about this, but the faucet is mounted to the floor so as to not kind of interrupt that beautiful wallpaper. Tell us about that space and some of the thought process. I know there was a lot of thought that went into it.
You know, I think probably the main point was that we wanted a freestanding sink that was a piece of art. So we started there, honestly. And the floor mount faucet came in because we didn't want any water splashed on the wallpaper, which sometimes happens with a wall mounted faucet when you have a sink that has no backsplash. So this floor mounted faucet gave us the perfect reason to do a paper that really was as dramatic as you described.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, what were the biggest rewards? I know the challenge obviously was kind of doing such incredible custom work and putting so much thought into executing a home that the owners clearly love now in just 9 months. But for you, was that the biggest reward? What were the biggest rewards when you look back on this project and kind of how the owners live in and use the home now?
You know, the reveal is always my absolute favorite part of a project. And her husband had hardly seen any of the design boards for the furnishing. So when they came in the morning of the reveal and saw the entire home, there were tears, which I love.
Yeah.
And my client's a tough cookie. I didn't think that she was capable of that kind of emotion, and she loved it. And she's just been an amazing client for our firm. We've done other projects with her since then, very recently, and we just adore them. They've been amazing clients for us and have become friends.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I hope that should you do another project with your client, you'll consider sharing it with Luxe.
Thanks for having me today.
Of course, thank you. We'll be in touch and talk soon.
Same to you. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
For friends out there, welcome to another episode of DesignBiz. We're talking about design in COVID times. I have a really good friend, Braulio Baptista. He's a partner at CGF. Amazing, on the West Coast. Where are you right now?
So I'm in the Portland area. My husband and I live on a rural property about 45 minutes outside of town. And it's a perfect, dreary, wet Pacific Northwest day. So yeah, I'm glad to be inside and cozying up to you guys.
I'm so happy to see you, Braulio. And how is being there as opposed to being at work? What's it been like for you?
You know, it's interesting. I realized soon into, quarantining and sheltering in place that my husband and I were fortunate that we have this much space. We're on several acres out here. And I think it's been one of the issues for people that are having to work at home, to homeschool at home, if they're in tight quarters, if they're in, a condo in an urban center without access to public parks. And so, this is actually one of the sort of themes of design for COVID, I think, moving forward. And we're hearing that from a lot of our clients, which is access to nature, access to open space, immediate in the environment where you're working or the environment where you're living. So.
Exactly. No, it's so true. So I feel the same way because I'm not in New York, even though I miss New York terribly, but I am very fortunate to be where I am and safe and have a little bit more space and light and air, which is something we've all learned too, right?
Light and air. It's about nature, it's about light, and it's about air. And you can see with what's happening to the real estate market across the country, we have the most competitive single family home market in Portland and in many areas of the country that we've ever seen. Wow. People are making the decision to move from that tight condo to have their own space, able to step into their backyard, and it's not surprising given what we've had to go through this year. So. Right.
Yeah. So just for everybody out there, I mean, Braulio, you're working on very, very complex projects, whether they're institutional, campus, labs, office. These are tough. These are tough to coordinate, and now you're kind of doing it from home. How's that been, and how are your clients doing?
We're making do with what the limitations that the world put upon us now. Yeah. Nothing is a replacement for the in-person collaboration, especially on the design process. I really miss the ability to be in the same room with actual printouts on the wall and to put a piece of trace over something and to draw a line. And what we've been doing from a technology standpoint at ZGF is figuring out how we can emulate that environment of the war room with the sketching and all of that in a virtual way. And so there's whiteboarding, there is, conferencing apps, Zoom offers this annotate feature where you can just put a line on the screen regardless of who's sharing content and what format that content is being shared, which is really helpful when you're saying, hey, move this over here a little bit. Right. You can draw exactly where you want it. And so, it's been a challenge, and I am concerned about, the quality of the product that's going to come out of this phase of our work. But we're trying to do our best.
No, I know. So people are saying how amazing your work is, which is very, very nice to see. And somebody else is saying yes and amazing. So you have to keep that standard up, bro.
You have to keep that standard. And so the flip side is I'm not having to spend as much time getting to meetings. I can spend that time, developing the design or preparing more thoughtful presentations. So I find myself putting final tweaks right before I have to click on the Zoom button, So that luxury is one that I do appreciate. So.
Yeah, no, that is so true. I don't think any of us ever thought about how much time we do spend traveling. But we want to be together too. So it's sort of, we'll see when we get out of this, huh?
I know that's a tough one. And then you also have cleaner air everywhere because there's fewer cars and fewer planes flying, and so. Yeah, I think the answer is technology. I drive an electric car, and I hope that our technology and our way of life will not be compromised while we reduce our carbon footprint for obvious reasons. So. Right,
exactly. So tell us about, we're going to look up, you have some amazing projects to share, but tell us about how your clients are doing. Again, big projects. So have some of them gone on hold, some of them continue on? How's that working?
Yeah, early on, I found that projects that were still dependent on fundraising went on hold really quickly. Right. So the stock market was doing what it was doing, and so our institutional clients were seeing their fundraising campaigns potentially compromised. Projects that relied on investment also were more vulnerable. Projects that were already funded Some of those clients actually wanted to speed up the process in order to potentially catch a better bidding climate. We have a huge project here in the Portland area for the airport, and that project moved speed ahead, full speed ahead, and it's a really large team, over 50 people, and so that was one of the ones that kept going.
What are they saying? Like, that's the interesting thing, right? Like doing an airport project and what the future of that will look like. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of conversation about what the new normal may look like. You know, it's hard for any of us to predict. You know, we've been looking at, what some of the Asian countries did, which have to do more with new behavior patterns than real impacts to the way that we build or design or plan. They went through SARS and all of those things, and it used to be weird for Americans to see, folks from Asia wearing masks on the planes, and now we know,
right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. And so it's hard to think that we would have to design for an indefinite future for a social distanced indoor environment, because square footages would just balloon, right? And so that's a really tough one. I mean, the projects that I was ready to show here today to talk about the importance of the integration with the outdoors, fortunately for those projects, they're all in conducive climates. I think in colder climates, if you're designing with preparedness towards a new potential pandemic in mind, it's a little bit tougher. The idea of promoting natural ventilation, pushing spaces where people may need to meet or be in closer proximity to one another, to the perimeter, look at indoor-outdoor relationships, direct natural ventilation, those things that reduce the potential for the concentration of virus particles in the air, which put you at a higher risk. I think that's what folks in colder climates may be having to think about.
Yeah, exactly. And just tell everybody out there listening in, explain the type of work that you're typically doing.
Oh, I'm really fortunate to work on a variety of different projects. One of our philosophies at ZGF is that design doesn't need to be beholden to a certain building type. And so even though we have certain experts in certain markets or building types, if you will, so because we do a lot of healthcare, we also do workplace, and we'd like to keep the designers cross-pollinating so that what you learn from a healthcare environment may apply to a courthouse, which is another facility that people go into in situations of distress. And so thinking about how the environment can help create a sense of calm, but also convey the dignity of the court system, all of that. Anyhow, and so I've been fortunate to work on a variety of projects. The majority of it is institutional, but I worked on research labs. I've worked on healthcare projects. I've worked on cultural projects, air and space museum, a corporate museum as well. I've done a good amount of academic housing and office as well. So I love the ability to, challenge my brain to think differently in these different paradigms. But there are threads, that carry through, which really are about the idea of placemaking, the idea of health, the idea of sustainability. So those are sort of the basic, sort of place, purpose, and performance. Those are the basic sort of attributes of any well-designed environment for any building type or any group out there.
So you have the 3 Ps, huh?
It's actually 4 Ps because there's also present. It's place, purpose. Purpose is one of my favorites. I mean, place is timeless now, which is about the ability of a design environment to make us, transcend our physical experience and have a sense of meaning and a sense of belonging. Purpose is the marriage of function and human accommodation. So instead of saying, form follows function, we like to say form follows purpose, because we have to think about, especially in environments that are highly functionally driven, like labs or healthcare projects, you have to think about the feeling the emotional and the well-being, even emotional well-being of those that are going to be in that environment. And then there's performance, which I don't need to go into. You know, everything we do today, we need to do with a smaller carbon footprint. And then there's the idea of presence, which is a little bit more ethereal, but it talks a lot about a very concrete thing, is that buildings are or design things, they're physical constructs. And so it's about the quality, the timelessness, and also in a way the quality that environment projects to make users feel honored by that space.
Yeah, I mean, you know, something that ZGF I think is always done so well. These are like I'm telling everybody out there, these are really big, complicated projects, and I don't discount beauty. And to me, that fits into presence, because you guys do projects that are so gorgeous, so elegant, that many users, and they are beautiful. So
yeah, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. There's an Alvar Aalto quote that I really love, which says, I think it goes to like something like, beauty is the marriage of purpose and form.
There you go.
And then there's light and place and all of that.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
I was gonna say, if you needed a P, it could be pretty, but pretty's not good enough. But presence kind of fits in there. All right, I'm gonna start pulling up some projects. I did want to let me see if I can find, if you don't mind, just because it's so timely. We'll start with Lundquist, so we can talk to everybody about the timeliness of this amazing lab.
Yeah, I mean, Lundquist is the Lundquist Institute is, you know, formerly LA Biomed, and they are a medical research institute in California in Torrance. Since the 60s, they've been operating there in sort of army barracks. And it's incredible if you dig into them and find out about their history, the number of medical advances that are common all around the world today that they were able to come up with in the places that they've been conducting their research for this long.
In those barracks, which is incredible, right?
In the barracks, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I think I told you before, the whole concept of paramedics was invented and developed at LA Biomed, and it's used all over the at the Lundquist Institute, and it's used all over the world today. And so it's incredibly humbling to think that in a new cutting-edge, state-of-the-art facility like this one that we just designed for them, a new medical advance that will change the world may occur.
Right.
And so
yes. So tell everybody. Sorry, you know, it crops off stuff. You do what you can do, but tell everybody what they're doing.
So they're working on they developed a sickle cell a disease cure. They're working on 2 different clinical trials for a COVID vaccine. And they've been able to continue to work in that space, partly because of things that we designed that were really about place making, about access to nature, about sustainability, that actually make the building better from a COVID prevention standpoint. And so there's this air distribution system that enters the offices, which flank internal labs. The air cascades from the offices into the labs and then exits the building, because as you know, you can't recirculate the air once it goes through a lab environment per code, right? And so in effect, with something that we did to save energy now means that this building is single pass air, so there's no air recirculating. And so the number of pathogens that can be floating around is greatly reduced. And so they felt comfortable to keep some measure of people working in the building, you know, with social distancing and all of that. And we're proud of that. Also, access to terraces. So this big terrace that you see off of the second floor in the view here. So if in a pandemic situation, you're having to be wearing a mask or, you know, whatever the other limitations may be inside, the ability to step outside, if you just need to catch a breather, if you need to talk on your cell phone while you're removing your mask or whatever, I'm seeing that buildings would need to have terraces on all the floors directly accessible, or at least one level, you know, above or below. And so, you know, that with, you know, a better development of the campus around it, creating a, you know, what was once barracks and parking lots to state-of-the-art buildings and quads, green quads, and in the California climate, being able to take a meeting outside for, pandemic reasons is something that is also a part of our awareness in designing. So it's about the interior and the exterior of a place. So.
Amazing. So just a couple things that I'm seeing. So somebody wrote that it was that building. If you're still on there, someone said that's a beautiful rendering. No, that is the building. It is not a rendering. That's the building. It's so beautiful. And just if anybody's just checking in, that building, they're on the third phase for trying to find a solution for COVID. So can you imagine Braulio's working, designing in places that are healing and that right now have a global importance, that's a lot of responsibility too, right?
Yeah, and it's a lot of responsibility. It's really humbling, but it gives me immense joy to be able to claim like an iota of a part
right.
in what's happening there. And I think I told you also, Cindy, that they like that building so much they asked us to replicate it across a quad for them. And so we've been speaking with the directors there and also some of the principal investigators of the Lundquist Institute to talk about what they see could change in the design related to the pandemic. And the number one thing was I don't want to touch anything.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
in addition to keep the single pass air, to keeping access to the outside, I think that in the new building, all the doors are going to be touchless.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we're actually hearing from many other clients as well.
Well, honestly, like, God bless them, working around the clock, trying to find a solution for all of us. And to have, I wish we had, for the folks out there, we didn't have an image of the barracks, but like, what can you imagine? Everybody, they were all working in barracks, and then they're working in this incredible building. So fantastic, Braulio. Big congrats. We love it so much. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to sort of run through, I think, is this one is CARB, which is a complicated, big word. Like there's a long phrase to what this is, right?
Yes, but they are an incredibly important government agency. They're the California Air Resources Board, and the restrictions that they've put on emissions in the state of California have changed the automobile industry all over the world.
Wow!
And so it's another mission-driven client that is so humbling to be fortunate to work with. And so they've been spread all over Southern California, and this facility will consolidate all the functions in Southern California. So they're going to be doing vehicle testing. There's a chemistry lab. There's offices. There's a conference center through which you enter. This is an earlier version of the design. The rendering before is closer to the final design, which is now under construction. Right. And it will have amazing art integrated. It's a net zero facility. And what they wanted, because their functions require you going from your desk to these control rooms that are looking at these test cells for vehicles, which you see here in this view. And so they just wanted a single building on this site, and we worked with them to try and impart this a more campus-like feel. So the party ended up being this sort of star-shaped building and plan that links all of these functions, but that creates courtyards, which now I think in a post-COVID age, access to those courtyards has become a much bigger deal.
Amazing.
And
so they're testing. So it's really a huge testing facility, right?
Yeah, it's testing vehicles and like any motor that will have to be in operation in the state of California has to go through this facility to test for emissions of all different kinds. And so, so it's just incredibly humbling to be able to work with a group like this as well. They were the smartest people in the room when we were working with them. They're all PhDs in chemistry and engineering and all of that. And we learned a ton by interacting with them.
The other thing that I love so much about the work is that you're able to push design forward, right? This is very, think about it, everybody out there. They're working on a lab, they're working on a testing facility. In the olden days, those were the buildings that weren't that great. But you're finding these clients that really understand the power of design in encouraging the work, right?
Yeah, I mean, we like to say first that we seek the design opportunities out there, but I think that with every project that, you know, comes to you, it's an opportunity to make it into a design opportunity. So we always try, you know, clients have different limitations. There's budget, there's taste.
Right, right.
So there's this saying that sometimes, you know, our PR department doesn't like me to say, but I firmly believe in it, is that clients get the buildings they deserve.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the good clients that understand, you know, the value that we bring, that allow us to challenge some of their preconceived notions, those are the buildings that turn out in the end to be the ones that I'm most proud of. But at the same time, we'd like to engender a process in which the client feels like they are an extension of the design team.
Yeah.
So if you're walking through a building and the client turns to someone that they're showing the building and they say, look at what we did here, look at what I did here, that's a great compliment, is that through the design process, they have ownership over all the decisions that were made in the final product.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I could see how they may not like that you always say that, but I completely agree with that, by the way.
Well, it's one of those that you have to think about when you hear it. Does it mean it in a positive way, or does it mean it in a negative way? And,
well, that's
you know,
how you can get away with it, right?
Yeah, and I won't comment on that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think next we have, which is also incredible to think about how far education has come, right? We're going to look at a residence hall, the Reed Residence Hall, right?
Yes, this is the Trillium building. Trillium is a flower that occurs in the forest in the Pacific Northwest here that has 3 flowers. And this building has 3 wings. So it was actually one of the students on the building committee that came up with this name. And it was great working with Reed. We have a relationship with Reed College that's over 3 decades old. Started with some of the founding partners of ZGF. I've been incredibly fortunate to kind of move that relationship forward. They don't build a lot, but when they do, they really take care in crafting an environment that focuses on the success of the student. And so in understanding the importance to, first of all, because of what's happened to the real estate market all across the US, being able to provide housing on campus can mean the difference between getting access to higher education or not for a lot of folks, right?
Yeah,
and then understanding the importance of, you know, creating a homey environment that gives students a sense of belonging, but that also encourages students, especially if they're, you know, if their personality types tend to be a little bit more reclusive, encouraging them to be out of their room. And so this is what we did here, providing access to the outside and also providing common spaces that are a variety of scales. So the one that you saw before that was like a little nook.
Hang on, I'll get to it. By the way, someone wrote, Doug Walker photo said, love trilliums, white flowers, sometimes purplish.
That's right.
Right, yeah. All right.
So it was really important for us to think about 1, 2, or larger numbers of people hanging outside of their room. So this space here is within the cluster or wing. And we were calling a space like this the sweats and slippers space.
I love
where
that.
You're tired of your room, but you can take your laptop and have a beautiful view towards downtown Portland. And then it means that you're outside and you're within earshot of something happening in the cluster kitchen or in the cluster living room. And that becomes an invitation to participate and to socially integrate. And that's really important for the academic success of students in any institution.
Beautiful. I mean, it does make you want to go to school again or be very resentful that we went to school not like this. But I remember, I think the biggest impression I had from ZGF early on was seeing many education buildings that were so special. So I think you had a name for yourself in terms of that, right?
I'm trying to think of what that is.
You know which one? You know it was. You know what it was? It was for one of the big sporting facilities that had a lot of won a lot of best of year awards, and you kept adding to the buildings. Which project was that? I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, maybe it was the football building at the University of Oregon.
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up because you kept doing more of it and it kept winning awards.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah,
wow.
no, you're right. You know, we did we did a small project in the University of Oregon, which was sort of sponsored by Nike.
Oh, it might have been that. It might have been that.
And it was just a small athletic medicine center, which then turned into the JQA academic tutoring facility, which is the big glass box floating on the reflective.
I think that's what it was, but I know
fountain.
I was completely wowed.
Yeah, no, that project is amazing. My partner,
Yeah.
Jean Sandoval, was a design partner on that one. The one thing I'll say about COVID on this one is we made a decision early in the process because, to save square footage, a lot of institutions will design a double room at sort of 1.5 times the size of 2 single rooms in order to save. Yeah. And we made a decision to make the double rooms the size of 2 full single modules. And so I actually engaged in a conversation with them, when the pandemic started, to look at redividing those double rooms so that they could, because many institutions decided that no double rooms would be occupied as such. They would put 1 student per room, right? So that means that you are then potentially reducing your bed capacity on your campus. So because of what we did here, they ended up not pursuing that just because of the disruption of construction. But they do have the flexibility of putting those walls in and then redividing those double rooms into singles.
It's funny. I've been hearing the same kind of conversation, and it's sort of interesting that I've also heard from designers whose kids are saying like, I always wanted a single, but we've been alone for so long that I want to be in a double with somebody now. So this social interaction is just becoming more and more important for everybody.
Yeah, we had so many conversations, Cindy, about this because, if you ask a student what they want, it isn't necessarily what's best for them. And it's not just students, it's all of us, right?
Right.
And so we actually have 3 different room types in this facility. We have traditional singles, traditional doubles, and we also have what we call a divided double, which has a single door, and it just has a full height partition that sort of articulates that room into 2 environments. So there's a little bit of visual privacy, but you still have to negotiate having a visitor over or playing music. And so it's those things that are part of preparing you for the real world out there that are so important in the educational experience. And so the having double rooms isn't all the time, every time about saving space, but more about the social mission of these buildings and promoting the best educational experience.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting how some of that plays out. But I love that you're already being flexed, right, in terms of that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, I have another, the Anschutz Health Science Building. I think we have a couple images of that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this one is under construction. I've just topped off about 2 months ago. It is what I've been calling a mixed-use School of Medicine building. Especially on this campus, the Anschutz campus, which is in Aurora, Colorado, just outside of Denver, the original master plan had created zones for education, zone for research, zone for clinical or inpatient care. And for this building, because of where medical care and research, and with the advent of translational research and also personalized medicine, which involves sort of DNA analysis, you have to get everybody under one roof. So that was the premise of the building. The big tower that's beyond this building is a big workhorse wet lab building.
Hang on, let me see what I can find here. I mean, that kind of shows some of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the tower to the right here is a big workhorse wet lab tower. And so we connected to it. And this facility then added to that mix lots of office and dry lab, a biobank of a vivarium in the basement, the Center for Personalized Medicine. There's also the behavioral health clinic here. As the healthcare models evolve more into personalized medicine, so it's looking at your DNA, looking at what potential risk factors you're for. It's all about designing a lifestyle for the rest of your life so that you're not triggering those potential genes that can mean whether you're going to have certain types of cancer or not. So behavioral health, whether it means you have to quit smoking or whatever, plays a huge part in this healthcare. So it's really interesting that it's about data analysis, DNA analysis, but it's also about basic things as helping people cope with certain behavior patterns that they have to learn to cultivate.
How do you feel about that? Like you said, sometimes you're the architect or designer in the room with all these like brilliant minds in a completely different way, right?
Yeah, I just find it fascinating that, with every new building that I do, I learn all these new things. I learn about these different, universes, and like I said before, it's just a blessing. I'm really fortunate to be able to have this sort of experience in my professional life.
Yeah, what are all these like, engineers, even with like Lundquist, right? In some ways they're so focused on, on the healing process or on their, the work that they're doing, so completely focused, but it must change their life to then be in a building like that, even if they didn't start out thinking that.
Yes, we do. That's one of the one of the greatest rewards is, we did a building, a research building at the University of Texas, Dallas. And after the building was completed, it was maybe 6 months or so, the client called us to say how they had recruited a top-notch researcher. And what sealed the deal was the tour through the building, right?
Yeah.
So and then I love that because it links to the idea of purpose, is that, designing buildings, yes, for what they represent, but also thinking a lot about what they can help produce, right?
Right.
And so to me, that's designing with purpose. It's designing a building that wraps itself as closely as possible around the mission that must be carried out by those that, will interface with it at some level or another.
Yeah.
No, so on this building, part of the strategy also was to bring all these people together. So the first 2 floors is essentially a conference center. There's meeting rooms, and there's a cafe, and there's a restaurant. There's a biophilic atrium. There's a large sort of ballroom type space. So the idea is that when you're coming to work, or if you're a patient, you're running into other things. And the idea of science on display, the idea of the intellectual collisions that could help spark a new discovery, that's all built into the planning and the design of this building. And also as a magnet, the idea of this, integration of nature, this top lit atrium with, biophilia integration for the cold seasons in Denver, in Colorado, will make this building a vibrant, active place year round. So we're really excited to see it come to fruition.
Amazing. Okay, so Catherine was saying she loves this talk so much. Thank you, Catherine. And if you're just joining in, I'm with Braulio Baptista. You can see him on Braulio. What are you at? Braulio Baptista. What is it? What is it?
No, my actual Instagram is Braulio MB. M as in Mary, B as in boy. My PR department had me log in on the ZGF.
Yeah, you're at. Yeah, so no, I'm just saying you can always check out his Instagram, but then we're at ZGF. So
at ZGF, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah, at
please.
ZGF. Yeah.
Forget my
personal.
personal.
They're on it right now. They're watching
okay.
on
yeah.
it. So that's super. Okay, so then let's go to University of Arizona, the BSRL project. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The BSRL project, it's essentially another research institute, focuses on biosciences. They're doing a lot of stuff with optics here, which is really interesting. And so the flexibility of the labs here, which in most of our projects is all plug and play casework, allows them to put in all of this can move out of the way. They could put like a big piece of equipment here. This photo is really interesting because it shows you the environment that the neighborhood plan engenders. So we were discussing this before, that labs have been typically sort of laminations of offices and then support space, which is inherently opaque, and then open labs. So this plan sort of cuts those things, those spaces into pieces, and then rotate them 90 degrees. So the open lab, across the hallway from it is like the open write-up area, and it's divided by a glass wall.
It's not this, but is it this or no?
No, it's still back in that. So so it's this area right here. So the lab is to your right. The open write-up area is to your left, which you were seeing here. And so you get a borrowed view from the lab through that glass wall to the outside, allowing you to see what time of day it is and greatly diminishing the sense of fatigue in that space. So behind that green wall that you were seeing there, that's where the enclosed offices are. And those are across the inherently opaque support areas. And so, and then the importance of having that write-up area right outside your lab is a big deal because, you know, in a lab environment, you can't even have a drink of water. You can't eat anything. It's not allowed by code.
Yeah.
So being able to go to that write-up area, have a little bit of lunch or a snack, but retain that sight line, the visual sight line to your lab bench where an important experiment may be going on is important. And then what you're getting, besides that functional accommodation that you're doing, is the sense of light and the better environment in the lab. And so that's the idea of designing with purpose.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's really, it's a stunner. Oh yeah, here's some pictures of the building itself. Hang on a second. By the way, Instagram mixes all the pictures that you send me up. It mixed all up. It just.
Oh, that's fine.
So I'm trying to. So I have the phone. I'm trying to like stay with you on everything. So I am working. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Hang on. I just want to get. Is that the? Yeah. There's also a beautiful. Does it look a beautiful kind of atrium here? Right. What is that?
This is the cafe, which is a 2-story space.
Beautiful.
There were 2 previously designed ZGF buildings on this super block that formed sort of a open space in between. This building completed the courtyard, but there was a mid-block master plan pedestrian connection that the building spans over like a bridge. So that's the bridge that you're seeing to the right here, and the labs are actually above you. And so one of the observations that I made when I went there is that the buildings needed to have a greater sense of dialogue to the courtyard, which they helped to shape. So we convinced the client to move the cafe from one of the existing buildings into this space, and we made it into this crystalline glass box that creates a lantern and a beacon within that courtyard.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, that's also a testament to the relationships you have, right? That you have these clients that you can keep having these projects together, and then when you find a better solution because they're growing, you can do something like this, right?
Yes. Well, the University of Arizona is a big supporter of design. You know, great architects do buildings there, and Bio5, the user group that we dealt with here, they were also amazing, and so very fortunate again to work with clients that are mission driven, but also understand the importance of crafting an environment that supports that mission.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I have one more project, and it's at Caltech, right? LEED Platinum, by the way. Many of these buildings that you showed today are super, super green, which, you know, makes sense based on everything you talked about.
Yeah, Caltech is another student residence. It's designed to be net zero and LEED Platinum, and also to be net zero water. Caltech has a big plan, which is amazing. You know, once the codes get there, the Caltech has a big plan to actually recycle their campus water, and so the building has been plumbed to be able to take part in that in anticipation of that future. This is 212 beds, if I remember correctly. And I'm not sure if you know about Caltech, but it's, you know, all the buildings are designed around courtyards, which, you know, now the idea of access not only to open space, but access to secure open space.
Yeah.
And given that this area of Pasadena can be a little rough, you know, it's an important thing that now has become even more important because of the need to be outdoors, right?
Yeah, it's so gentle. It, you know, it feels like you're going into an amazing residential property, right?
Yeah, and we, you know, with, you know, a pretty challenging budget situation, you know, we made this decision to move all these shear walls that were required for, you know, seismic bracing to the outside, and we made the majority of the building raw concrete, and that took a lot of convincing.
It did. So, I bet. Wait.
So I love the, you know, the texture of concrete, even with all its imperfections and the character that imparts any space.
Yeah.
And so and that creates sort of an incomplete courtyard, and then that wood structure that's the dining hall, because Caltech has the house model from Harvard, where within your own residence hall you also do all the dining. Yeah. So this This was seen as a lantern and also a window from the outside world, which is to the left here, and the internal courtyard of the Bechtel residence, which is to the right. And so it creates, it's part of the security perimeter, but it also creates a sense of dialogue from the campus environment to the internal courtyard.
There's the internal courtyard, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And these were early photos before the landscape took, but once the trees all, get big in here and all of that, this is, will continue to be an amazing space.
I mean, come on, who'd want to leave this though? You're spoiling them way too much, Braulio. I think you're part of the problem.
It could be.
Yeah. So tell us what some of these spaces are.
So, along with the house model, all the residents at Caltech also have faculty and residence units, and we designed 2 of them here, which have, I think they each have 2 bedrooms and a living room, a little bit of dining, and a kitchen. And so that's that space that you saw before, and which was staged for those photos. We curated that furniture for the photos, but the idea is that in those spaces, that faculty person in their family are bringing their own furniture and furnishing it. And so this space here does have the final design. This is a common lounge within the building for the students. And so the Caltech school color is orange, so we wanted to, weave some of that in there, both in the, and there's also, Caltech is, Caltech and MIT are up there as the best tech schools, in the world. And so the idea of picking up, you saw that in the lighting scheme in the dining hall, which picks up on.
I'll go back. Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
it was inspired by the idea of molecules and chemistry, and so even that choice of the carpet tiles as an hexagon was inspired by that idea of science, reflecting science, here and there in the building.
Amazing, amazing. Some of them are tall. They're getting a little cropped off. Hang on a second. What is this part of? What is this?
Oh, this is another building. This is
another building?
Yeah, this is the Hilton Foundation headquarters.
Hilton. Yeah. Yeah. That's also LEED Platinum, right?
It's also LEED Platinum and Net Zero. And this building is really interesting. The client had to actually leave this building because they outgrew it. And so they ended up renting or buying a building in Westlake Village. This is in Agoura Hills, which is north of LA, just north of Calabasas. But this building, because the Conrad Hilton Foundation works with environmental causes as well as poverty and water access around the world, they're a philanthropic organization. They wanted to show how you could develop in a different way. And so they went through a design process with us to completely innovate the way that buildings could be ventilated in a climate like Southern California. And we were working with amazing consultants from Australia at the time who identified a similarity between the climate of Agoura Hills and the climate of some areas of the Middle East. And so we turned to those wind towers, the Badgirs from Iran, to develop a completely passive ventilation system that's based on passive downdraft. So if you go to the picture of the exterior of the building.
Hang on. No?
One more.
Wait, what about that?
Oh, that right there. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to follow you.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. So the building has these concrete chimneys that are marching up along the perimeter, the long sides of the building. And they have these baffles at the top that open and close depending on the direction of the wind. At the top, there's also water coils that cool that air. And the air then falls by natural buoyancy in that chimney, and then it enters the occupied space through through a raised floor plenum, and then by the heat that's generated by occupants and by equipment, the air rises and then it exits through this internal clerestory. So the section of this building is a crystallization of that air movement that was intended to make this work. So this building does not have a single fan.
Wow.
So right off the bat on our energy model, we slashed off the fan power, which was like, boom, 30%, right? And the other thing that we found is that the amount of oxygen, because the air is natural coming from the outside, it's like being outside. And so every time I went to a meeting there, I never had like the thing of like yawning in the meeting and beginning to fall asleep. And I was like, why is that? And I was like, oh, it's because of the system that we designed.
Wow.
And there was a lot of concern. We designed a lot of fail-safe points in the building as well. We thought, well, what if the air doesn't move as intended? What if there's a dust storm outside or it gets windy? If the particles would come into the building. And what we found is because the air is moving so slowly, whereas in a mechanically driven system, you're blowing that air into the building at such force, you're actually bringing in particles. That's why it has to be filtered. In this case, it's not filtered. But because the air is moving slowly and it comes in and then back out again, there's no particulate matter inside of the building, except for what's coming through the doors when they're open and all of that. And so
that is amazing. Are you going to do it again? Are you going to...
They actually hired us to do an expansion to this so that they can move back to this site. And so part of our challenge was, because this was a rather expensive building, it's only about 40,000 square feet. And it was a very high cost per square foot because of so much innovation. We kept saying, we're designing a Swiss watch. I mean, the number of baffles that open and close in that raised floor plan. So our challenge for the next building was to meet the same levels of sustainability and indoor air quality, but in a way that's more accessible, so that we would make technology similar to this more accessible to other developers that perhaps don't have the same budget or the same aspirations to innovate.
Yeah, this is when I say that as a design community, we've been doing a lot of things that are on the right path, right? Because you're looking at this project, which is so, critical about air and airflow in a world where all we want to talk about is air and having clean air.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. And you were working on that, I don't know how many years before, right?
Yeah, like 10 years ago. Yeah, I mean,
so now you could be like, hey.
Yeah, and that's my original point. It's like,
yes,
there's some different things that we're going to have to do in preparing our design environments to a potential future pandemic. Right. But a lot of the things that we were already doing, thinking about the environment, thinking about just general indoor health, thinking about placemaking, have been reinforced by the things that we're having to think about, in designing for a pandemic.
Right, and some things that, as you say, that are new processes may be a little expensive, but sometimes things we don't see now are going to be even more critical for clients. Like that's like, it's almost like when you talk about LEED or sustainability, now it's like that's the beginning point, right?
Yeah, and there's a premium that comes with when you're talking about budget, right? Which we have to do on every project.
Yeah.
There's a premium with something new. I mean, the folks that are putting estimates together or are putting bids at it, if they don't know it, they tend to pad those numbers, right? So there is a little bit of a duty in trying to push something new that could be incredibly beneficial to building performance or other things that help the environment, so that you can push the technology, make it more widespread, and make it more accessible from a cost standpoint as well. So that's one of the big points of innovation, is that we can get better together by pushing and having a little bit of tenacity and helping our clients get there.
Right, exactly. And don't you think collaboration is going to be even more critical, whether it's on the engineering side or how we make these things happen to get us to this other side? I mean, that's just the perfect end note, that building, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that building I like to talk about is one of the most integrated design process projects that we've ever had. I mean, we were talking when we were designing the size of the office and the size of the circulation and the size of that central atrium zone, we had to talk about how far does the air go. So the engineer had to be in the room.
Amazing.
And at one point in one of our sessions with the client, he said, I look around the room and I can't tell who's an architect or who's an engineer. And I think that level of collaboration, which we're seeing, enables the kind of medical science that our clients are trying to do in their buildings. It applies to us too.
Right.
In order for us to achieve, better results, better integration between engineering and architecture, aesthetics and purpose.
Yes.
It takes more work, but it's what we have to do.
Right, exactly. It's an amazing message. By the way, everyone is saying like amazing and do more things like that and beautiful work. Okay, look, I'm sending you a virtual hug.
Oh, same to you.
Okay, all right. Bye, everybody. Take care.